Introduction. At this moment, Riesel had no idea that Loki had already gathered the entire Familia's first-class adventurers for him. He ran through the streets, glancing at the completely darkened sky, and couldn't help but sigh. I'm completely late now. With Loki's prior instructions, Riesel had initially planned to explore only the 7th floor, not going any further to avoid wasting too much time and returning to the Familia too late. But due to his visible growth in strength after the status update, he found himself getting stronger, and even on the 7th floor, there was no longer any excitement. Unable to hold back, he descended to the 8th floor. This decision led to an uncontrollable situation. Why did I get so excited again and completely forget about the time? Riesel slapped his forehead, unable to suppress another sigh. He knew it was his bad habit. In this second life, he became extremely eager for excitement and change. Now, with the effect of the skill, Endless, he attained the highest rank of development abilities, making his stamina and energy seem inexhaustible. If he immersed himself in something, it was only natural for him to forget the time. If it weren't for his growling stomach begging to be filled, he might have kept on with the killing spree, not giving a second thought to heading back. I hope Loki hasn't waited too long. Riesel quickened his pace to return to the Familia. With his current speed and almost limitless stamina, he made good time. Before long, he smoothly returned to the Familia's base, back to Twilight Manor. Oi! Riesel. As Riesel prepared to enter the manor directly, a voice came from above, causing him to halt. Looking up, Riesel realized that Loki was leaning out of a window on the top floor of the central tower, waving at him. You're finally back. Loki shouted gruffly. Hurry up and come up. Everyone's waiting for you. Without further ado, Riesel nodded in understanding and headed straight to his room. He stripped off his dirty clothes and armor, placed his weapons by the bed, tidied himself up a bit, and then quickly made his way to the divine room. Here he is. Come in quickly. Without waiting for Riesel to knock, Loki, as if anticipating his arrival, opened the door and ushered him inside. He entered the room, instantly bathed in the gazes of everyone present. Glancing around, he instantly raised his eyebrows in surprise. Well, all the Familia's first-class adventurers are here. As Riesel thought like that, the people in the room also observed him. It's him. Ice, who had been silent in the corner, gently froze upon seeing Riesel. Aren't you the rookie Ice was spying on today? Tiona exclaimed in surprise. Her words contained so much information that everyone present, including Riesel, was left stunned. Ice was spying on someone. Finn and Gareth simultaneously exclaimed and wore puzzled expressions. So, Loki was talking about him. Riveria also gave Riesel a once-over. Indeed. Tion, staying by Finn's side, was somewhat surprised as well. Only Bet stared blankly for a while, then exploded. You foolish Amazoness. What bullshit are you spouting again? Bet snapped with bare teeth. Ice would never spy on such a small fry, right? You're the one being foolish. Tiona, annoyed, retorted bluntly. Why don't you go ask Ice herself? All eyes turned to Ice. Ice, with a slightly embarrassed expression, struggled to explain and ended up blushing, not out of timidity, but out of embarrassment. After all, why did Tiona have to phrase it in such a way that could be easily misunderstood? So, Ice didn't want to speak and dared not look at Riesel's expression at this moment. Riesel, on the other hand, also didn't dare to glance at Ice. Although Tiona's bizarre statement made him pause for a moment, he quickly composed himself, taking the initiative to change the topic. I'm sorry for being late. Riesel apologized to all his Familia's seniors present. TCH. Bet, with a disdainful expression, turned away, seemingly uninterested in saying anything to Riesel. Instead, he glared at Tiona, irritated by her unpleasant phrasing. Everyone fell silent, looking towards their captain. Are you the rookie Loki mentioned? Finn gave Riesel a generous smile. Despite Riesel's attitude, Finn remained friendly, even expressing some appreciation. Venturing into the dungeon until this time, you're a hard worker one. As the captain, Finn wouldn't blame someone for being a little late, especially considering the rookie's achievement who ventured into the dungeon until this hour. Thank you for your understanding. Riesel also didn't underestimate Finn, despite his deceptive appearance. After all, the Palom before him, who looked like an underage human child, was not only a level 6 first-class adventurer but also considered a hope and a hero within his race. He had led Loki Familia for decades, turning it from a newly established small familia into one of the strongest familia in VALRRR. With numerous adventures and a personal epic, he was a legendary figure known worldwide. So, whether it was the elven royalty like VALRRR or the distinct and independent personalities of the Familia executives present, they all sincerely respected Finn, who seemed to lack any authority. Even Loki, as the Familia's goddess, was now just smiling and watching everything unfold, completely giving the stage to Finn. This clearly demonstrated his ability and prestige. In addition, despite his youthful appearance, Finn was already 42 years old, older than Riesel in his previous life. All in all, Riesel had no reason to underestimate Finn. On the other hand, Finn was filled with goodwill and curiosity as he faced Riesel calmly standing before him. Loki couldn't stop praising you. She was just singing your praises endlessly in front of us, you know. Finn chuckled. To be the subject of Loki's admiration, it's a rare thing. Honestly, I'm quite curious about you. Yeah. Tiona couldn't hold back any longer. She raised her hand and shouted eagerly. Loki really admires you. We've never seen her talk about a guy so much before. Yeah, there are quite a few girls. Tiona added with perfect timing and spoke mysteriously. But Loki only praised their looks and figures. Everyone present immediately nodded in agreement. Loki, who had been smiling, lost her smile after hearing that statement. Did they just blatantly talk shit about me? I'm your goddess, for fuck's sake. You guys are totally enjoying this. HMPH. Serves you right. Bet threw in a remark from the side, almost causing Loki to snap. Okay, enough fooling around. Gareth slapped the table, stopping the atmosphere that was gradually turning sour. I'm genuinely curious. This kid must have some talent to be praised so much by Loki. I heard you joined the Familia just a few days ago and received the blessing around the same time. VALRRR interjected. Loki mentioned you have something to ask of us. Just tell us. As long as it's not too much, as members of the same Familia, we'll absolutely try to help you. Her attitude matched that of the others towards Riesel, friendly. However, the lone werewolf Bet still stood there, sporting a disdainful expression and a hint of impatience. It appeared that he didn't quite fancy Riesel. Just a small fry who received the blessing a few days ago. I don't know why you guys are being so attentive to him. Bet complained grumpily, making the atmosphere subtly tense. Bet. Finn warned with a furrowed brow, causing Bet to snort lightly, not pushing it too far. Ignore him. He's just foul-mouthed. The twin sisters, Tiona and Tion, approached Riesel and comforted him. Ice shifted her gaze back to Riesel and observed him with worry. But Riesel only glanced at Bet, who showed no remorse on his face and calmly shook his head, unfazed. Thanks for the concern. I'm fine and not bothered at all. Riesel pondered for a moment, then continued. But, speaking of which, I do have an awkward request. I was hoping seniors could lend me a hand. Hey, what is it? Finn chuckled and was still a bit unclear about it. After all, Loki had gathered everyone here to introduce Riesel, and the only reason could be for this so-called awkward request. In other words, she was indirectly telling them to assist Riesel. With this thought in mind, Finn exchanged glances with the other two top executives, waiting for Riesel to speak up. In this silent situation, Riesel finally opened his mouth. I want to consult about magic. With just one sentence, everyone blinked in surprise. Consult about magic? VALRRR, who was known as the strongest mage in Orario, became intrigued when the request involved magic. Yes. Riesel nodded. I've awakened a magic, but to use it, I need to meet certain conditions. The specifics of these conditions didn't need much explanation. In short, he needed someone he could consult with to be able to use his magic. What kind of magic is it? Tiona couldn't contain her curiosity. Finn, VALRRR, and Gareth all looked directly at Loki. Well, his magic is somewhat similar to Lefia's elf ring. Loki chuckled and remarked mysteriously. With just one sentence, everyone simultaneously raised their eyebrows in surprise, and the way they looked at Riesel also started to change. Support and read advanced chapters at Patreon.com VALRRR. VALRRR creators' thoughts. 7 comments 0 vote. First mentor. Lefia Voridis. This morning, she was by Ice's side, always following behind her like a fangirl. Even though Lefia wasn't present, in the hearts of the executives present, the position of that elf was quite significant. The reason was straightforward. Lefia, who was a junior and treated as the second string in Loki Familia, had already received a blessing due to her formal education in the school district. Unlike someone like Riesel, who joined as an ordinary person, she joined the Familia with a bestowed blessing. She was a legitimate mage who not only possessed outstanding magic but also had specialized skills that enhanced her magical prowess. As a rearguard mage, she was considered perfect, even though she was only a level 3, and not a level 5 or higher first-class adventurer. With her skills and excellent mag, she wielded firepower comparable to a level 5 first-class mage. In other words, Lefia was a genius with a full bag of innate magical talent. Even as a junior in the Familia, this elf was highly regarded by the Familia executives. Especially for Riveria, who was also a mage and an elf, there was a subtle sense that she was grooming this junior as her successor. And who was Riveria? High Elf, Elven Royalty, Orario's strongest mage, and Loki Familia's vice captain, as well as top executive. She was adorned with a halo. As the successor to such a character, Lefia's lowest achievement in the future will be as the second in command of the Familia, or perhaps even surpassing Riveria to become the world's strongest mage. Lefia, as a magical genius, not only possessed 3 magic but one of her magic was particularly special. She could cast any magic of the elf race, a magic known as the elf ring. As long as she fully understood the magic's effects and chant, she could cast any elven magic. Now, Loki was saying that Riesel's magic was somewhat similar to Lefia's elf ring. Didn't that mean this rookie in front of them, like Lefia, could cast anyone's magic as long as he fully understood its effects and chant? This is truly surprising. Gareth couldn't help but exclaim. Yeah. Riveria also marveled. I didn't expect another mage like Lefia. Mage. Him. Loki raised an eyebrow. You must be kidding me. This kid, becoming a rearguard and peacefully casting magic from behind. Nah. He can't be a mage in any way. Thinking about Riesel's rapidly growing status, she felt a headache coming on. I think this kid seems to be of the same type as Ice, both being problem children who won't settle down unless they go on a rampage amid the monsters. Loki remarked. Her statement made everyone look at Riesel in a somewhat awkward manner. Same type as Ice. Really? The Amazonas twin sisters were whispering to each other. Bet frowned, while Finn tapped the desk with his finger, lost in thought. Meanwhile, Riesel and Ice once again glanced at each other unintentionally. Riesel immediately looked away while Ice remained expressionless with eyes flickering with a subtle light. Like me. Ice recalled the strange resemblance in his eyes earlier, reminiscent of her own reflection in the mirror. Inside the room, an eerie and unfathomable mystery-filled silence emerged for no apparent reason. Clap. Okay, stop overthinking it. Loki clapped her hands, redirecting everyone's attention. Let's focus on solving this kid's problem. Who's gonna teach him magic? As soon as the question was thrown out, 2 people immediately declared their exit. Don't count on me. Bet's voice was cold. I have no interest in teaching a small fry like him. After saying that, as if touched by something painful, he didn't linger any longer and left the room directly. No one said anything as they watched this scene unfold. Clearly, they thought Bet was better off leaving, and they let him go without a fuss. I can't do it either. The second person to announce their exit was the lively and cheerful Tiona. However, her reason was different from Bet's. I don't have magic. Even if you ask me to teach him, what can I teach? Tiona looked dejected, her face filled with resentment. Magic was such a power. It could awaken from the start or never find the right trigger, leaving someone unable to use it their entire life. She was clearly in the latter category, so even though she was a level 5 first-class adventurer, she still couldn't use any magic, sticking to pure close combat. So, Finn, Riveria, Gareth, and Tion will teach. Loki confirmed. I'll pass. Finn thought carefully and shook his head regretfully. My magic has too many obvious side effects. It's not suitable for a beginner adventurer to learn. He's better off not learning my magic. If Captain says so, I'll pass too. Tion immediately followed Finn's lead. My magic doesn't have much power. It's better to let Riveria teach him. Right, let this stubborn elf be his teacher. Gareth laughed. Anyway, she's like a mom who likes to meddle with her kids. Let her handle his magic training. Who's a mom? Riveria glared at Gareth but didn't reject the proposal. If she could add a powerful rearguard mage to the Familia, she wouldn't refuse, especially considering that Riesel seemed to be a genius rookie with even fewer restrictions than Lefia. Lefia's elf ring was limited to the elf race, allowing her to learn and use elven magic. Riesel's magic, on the other hand, based on Loki's on-the-spot inquiry, was undoubtedly not restricted by race. With various races present, including elves, Palams, dwarves, Amazonesses, and beastmen, Riesel, if able to learn the magic of everyone present, would practically be able to learn all the magic in the world. This potential, this innate skill, surpassed even Lefia's. In this way, it was only natural for her not to ignore such a potential. As the strongest mage in Orario known as 9 Hell, if there was a way for him to learn her magic, no one would want to refuse. Just as everyone was thinking that way, Riesel suddenly spoke up. Can I learn magic from Miss Ice? Instead of getting dejected, Riesel gazed at Ice and completely ignored the others. Me. Ice was instantly stunned. Everyone collectively paused for a moment, then simultaneously furrowed their brows. Including Loki. Kiddo. Loki hesitated, looking like she had something to say. I think you should try someone else. Right. Finn agreed, with a calm face. Ice's magic is a bit unique. Even if your magic can learn and use other people's magic, whether you can successfully learn her magic is really uncertain. The rest also looked at Riesel with strange expressions, then exchanged glances between Riesel and Ice. Only Tiona, with a puzzled expression, spoke up. Isn't that great? Ice's magic is so powerful. If he could learn it, our familia would have 2 super-powered combatants in the future. You better keep quiet. Tiona's mouth was immediately covered by Tion's hand. Ignoring her sister's struggle, Tion dragged her away out of the room. Let me teach you instead. Rivria said while staring at Riesel solemnly. Ice's magic, to some extent, is dangerous to use. Even if you can learn it, I don't recommend you to use it. Moreover, Ice absolutely wouldn't want to teach it to anyone. Her magic holds a special significance for her. Rivria didn't voice her thought but glanced at Ice. Ice had already lowered her head, making it impossible for anyone to discern her expression. The atmosphere in the room underwent another subtle change. As I thought, is this matter a bit sensitive? Riesel didn't feel surprised by their reactions. As someone familiar with the original work, he naturally understood why everyone reacted the way they did when he expressed his desire to learn Ice's magic. Tiona and Tion seemed fine. They probably weren't aware of the hidden details. But the 3 top executives and the goddess, as the higher-ups of the familia, undoubtedly had some understanding of Ice's situation. Despite knowing this, Riesel still brought up the idea. There was no other reason. I've heard about Miss Ice's magic, and I believe it's the most suitable magic for me at this moment. Riesel spoke sincerely and openly, shifting his gaze directly at Ice. Although it may sound abrupt and even presumptuous, it's very important for me. Could you please agree to my request? Riesel hesitated for a moment and added. I really want to become strong quickly. The weight carried by his words was easily felt by everyone present. Want to become strong quickly. Ice muttered, finally moved, and lifted her head. The third gaze exchange between the 2 of them took place again, while the others fell silent, refraining from saying anything more. Silence permeated the room. It wasn't until much later that Ice finally spoke up. I'll teach you. After she uttered those words, Riesel immediately bowed his head to her, expressing gratitude. Thank you very much. And so, he gained his first mentor in life. Support and read advanced chapters at Patreon.com VALRRR. VALRRR creators' thoughts. 11 comments 0 vote. Ultra short chant magic. Twilight Manor, courtyard. In this small courtyard, shaped like a circle around the central tower, Riesel stepped out from the manor, carrying a slender sword as his main weapon. Several towers stood side by side, causing the courtyard to be somewhat dimly lit. Despite well cared for flowers and plants flourishing around, shadows still lingered. This resulted in a peculiar situation where, even though it was broad daylight, the light in this place wasn't quite sufficient, making one question if it was still nighttime. Fortunately, the courtyard was equipped with small fountains and magic stone lampposts. The soft glow from the magic stone lamps alleviated the inconvenience, at least to some extent. Walking through the courtyard, Riesel made his way to the corner. Swish. Suddenly, the sound of something slicing through the air resonated. It was the sound created by the movement of a sword swinging through the air. Riesel halted his step, turning his gaze towards the source of the sound. In the next moment, he laid eyes on the girl he was supposed to meet here. The doll-like girl with golden hair held a bright silver sword, engaging in training. Her calm expression turned indifferent and her eyes became extremely sharp. With each swing of her sword, she cut through the air sharply, creating flashes of silver light, astonishingly fast. Chopping vertically, slashing horizontally, cutting diagonally, thrusting forward, and making swift slices, a girl, as beautiful as an elf and as mysterious as a goddess, stood on a lush green patch of ground, continuously wielding her beloved sword. It was as if she perceived an unseen enemy right before her, or perhaps feared that she might come to a standstill. She danced alone in an intense swordplay, lost in the rhythm of her own movements. Observing this scene, Riesel remained silent, refraining from disturbing her or making any unnecessary moves, simply standing in place and watching with his eyes bright and focused. He was learning her swordsmanship and attempting to understand the trajectory of her sword swings. Unfortunately, her sword was too fast, to the point where he couldn't keep up with her movements. All he could see were silver streaks dancing in the air, and nothing more. Despite this, he did not feel bored. He continued to watch attentively until the sunlight descended from the sky, illuminating the entire courtyard. Huff. Finally, Ice stopped. She raised her sword upward, then sheathed it. After finishing her exercise, she turned towards Riesel. Sorry. Ice said somewhat apologetically, lowering her eyes slightly. Made you wait. No. Riesel shook his head and calmly responded. I should thank you for letting me observe your training. Really? Ice tilted her head, seeming a bit puzzled, and hesitated. Was it helpful for you? Of course. Riesel paused, then nodded. After all, as you can see, like you, I also wield a sword. He raised the weapon in his hand, bringing it into Ice's view. A sword. Ice was somewhat surprised and somewhat astonished. You're really not a mage. At least, I'm not the kind of pure rearguard mage. Riesel responded and thought for a moment. I prefer charging into the enemy directly rather than staying at the back and using magic. After all, that's undoubtedly more exciting. Riesel said the true reason in his mind. Ice then recalled Loki's remarks from yesterday. I think this kid seems to be of the same type as Ice, both being problem children who won't settle down unless they go on a rampage amid the monsters. As she thought about that, Ice couldn't help but feel a bit of closeness to him. She just felt that this rookie, highly praised by Loki, was quite similar to herself in various aspects. Now, he even wanted to learn her magic. Just thinking about it, Ice couldn't help but feel a complex mix of emotions. Can I ask you a question? Driven by these complex emotions, Ice turned her head to Riesel and asked. Go ahead. Riesel seemed to have some idea of what Ice was about to ask, with his expression remaining unchanged. Why me? Ice carefully chose her words but ended up saying them somewhat clumsily. VALRRR is willing to teach you. Even with the strongest mage in Orario offering to do so, why choose me when you could learn from her? My magic isn't as flashy as VALRRR's or Lefia's, with powerful effects and range. That was how Ice saw her own magic. Riesel also knew that if he wanted to be powerful, generally accepted magic in line with people's expectations of the term, learning from VALRRR would be the best choice. Her magic was known for its firepower, capable of incinerating enemies even higher leveled than herself, or scorching a large area around. In comparison, Ice's magic, though unique, lacked that decisive power and firepower. Therefore, under normal circumstances, one would prefer to learn VALRRR's magic. Unaware of Ice's thoughts, Riesel had his own considerations. As I mentioned yesterday, I personally believe that your magic is the most suitable for me at this moment. He explained while looking directly at her face. As everyone knows, all magic in the world shares a common usage requirement: you must recite a fixed chant, also known as chanting. As she heard his reason, Ice nodded in agreement. Chanting was the only way to use magic. It served as the trigger for magic, stabilized one's mind, to smoothly convert the basic ability of mag into fuel, and release the phenomenon known as magic. This held true in both the main world and this world. Generally speaking, the longer the chant of magic, the more time it took to chant, and the more astonishing the power and effects of the said magic. However, this didn't mean that magic with a lengthy chant was a good thing. Magic with a long chant may indeed be extremely powerful. On the other hand, the time it takes to cast becomes long, leading to various problems. That was how Riesel saw it. Setting aside interruptions and unexpected events during casting, for the growth of status, having magic with a long chant is not a good thing. Magic that took time to cast inevitably had many limitations in its usage, with few opportunities to use it. And if there were fewer chances to use magic, the growth of mag became less optimistic. Whether it was mag, or other basic abilities like STR, and Dex, or AGI, the way to make them grow was to use them frequently. If one didn't get the chance to use them regularly, it meant that basic abilities related to the power and effects of magic, such as mag, were challenging to improve. Because of this, many mages put a lot of effort into finding opportunities to unleash their magic. However, the power of magic was extraordinary, a supernatural force that could cause massive destruction with just one strike. Inside the city, it was generally difficult to find opportunities to use it. Even when entering the dungeon and casting magic in it while facing attacks from monsters, whether mages could maintain their composure and focus to smoothly chant their magic was another uncertainty. Therefore, the improvement of mag was acknowledged to be more challenging than other basic abilities and considerably more so. Similarly, once this ability was enhanced, the direct impact was a significant improvement in one's magic power, effects, and more. The reason Riesel chose Ice's magic was that, in his view, within the entire Loki familia, only her magic was the easiest to use. If I'm not mistaken, your magic should belong to the ultra-short chant type, right? Riesel's inquiry was met with a confirming gesture from Ice. Basically, magic was divided into ultra-short chant, long chant, and ultra-long chant. The longer the chant, the stronger the magic, but the usage time and convenience would decrease. Conversely, the shorter the chant, the weaker the magic, but it would possess the convenience of being able to be activated quickly. Ultra-short chant magic is the easiest magic to use. Riesel stated his purpose clearly. I just want to learn magic that's easy to use, magic that can be used frequently. That's the way to train, MAG. Riesel calmly smiled and continued. And once MAG is improved, the scale and effectiveness of magic will also increase. When I learn other magic in the future, the power and effects of the magic won't be limited by the low MAG. They might even show stronger power and effects because my MAG has been improved. He had long decided that his first magic had to be an ultra-short chant magic. Only by getting a hold of ultra-short chant magic first, could the growth potential of his future magic be ensured. Of course, this would inevitably cause a problem. That was, the magic he learned would inevitably not have too much power and effect. However, in the face of the swordswoman before him, this problem did not exist. Because the only magic Ice possessed, classified as an ultra-short chant magic, actually belonged to an extraordinary type. Its effects were not only not weak but rather acknowledged as strong. How strong? Strong enough that Ice, despite being only level 5, while there were influential figures at level 6 and level 7 above her, could still stand out and become the strongest swordswoman in everyone's eyes. Therefore, could you please use your magic? Riesel requested with an earnest expression. After a moment of silence, Ice responded. Tempest. Whoosh. The wind began to swirl around her body. Support and read advanced chapters at Patreon. Com. VALRRR. VALRRR creators' thoughts. 8 comments 0 vote. Ariel. In the courtyard, an unknown and beautiful scene quietly unfolded. The wind was picking up. The wind was gathering. Visible air currents, like a playful fairy, suddenly swept in from all directions, wrapping around Ice's body. In this visible wind, the girl, enveloped by the gentle breeze, had golden hair that shimmered like sand, dancing in the air. It was a sight as beautiful as a painting. This is my magic. Ice said calmly while being surrounded by the wind as if she had transformed into a wind spirit. Riesel stared intently at the wind around her body, memories in his mind coming to life. Ariel. That was Ice's only usable magic, an enchant-type magic. Enchant-type magic could attach a certain magical attribute to oneself or objects one touches, enhancing one's power and abilities. Ice's Ariel was a wind element enchant-type magic. The chant for this magic consisted of only one word, an ultra-short chant. This made it exceptionally fast to cast, with a difficulty level surprisingly low compared to other magic. When activated, the magic provided the caster with the protection of the wind, the power of the wind element, control over wind force, and the ability to wrap wind around the body and weapon. It served as both protection and assistance in attacks, increasing speed, and even granting the ability to fly short distances. It was almost an all-in-one package of attack, defense, speed, and support, with the only drawback being its inability to perform long-distance attacks. Now, this magic was unfolding before Riesel's eyes, imprinted in his memory. At this moment, he felt it. His memories were stirring. Tempest. As if by instinct, Riesel chanted the ultra-short chant he had just heard a few seconds ago. The stirring memories immediately responded to his chant. Whoosh. The wind swept in again. However, this time, it came from all directions. It started off faint, but gradually, the powerful wind created by the atmosphere became more and more spectacular, wrapping around Riesel's body. My magic. Ice's attractive eyes widened involuntarily. Not only Ice but even Riesel in the courtyard failed to notice that, above, several windows were open, allowing lines of sight to peek through, gazing in their direction. Succeeded. Loki muttered in astonishment as she looked at Riesel effortlessly using Ice's magic. Her expression was quite comical, unsure if she was crying or laughing. That rookie actually pulled off Ice's magic. This is going to be interesting. The Amazonas twins peeked from their room, clearly witnessing everything. TCH. Bet clicked his tongue silently and turned away. Meanwhile, Finn, Riveria, and Gareth gathered in the same room, looking at each other in dismay as they watched a boy and a girl entwined with the wind in the courtyard. It really worked. Finn sighed emotionally. It seems our rookie, in terms of uniqueness, might be the best in the entire familia. Isn't that obvious? Gareth quipped, his muscular arms crossed. If he can learn Ice's magic, could it be that Kid isn't an ordinary human like Ice? At his speculation, VALRRR remained silent, only staring at Riesel's figure, then at Ice's with her brow slightly furrowed. She knew very well how special Ice's magic was. At first glance, it seemed like just a typical enchant-type magic with nothing extraordinary. Enchant-type magic wasn't even that rare in VALRRR. There were probably dozens of adventurers with enchant-type magic, and even in Loki Familia, Ice wasn't the only one with it. But compared to those enchant-type magic, Ice's enchant-type magic had a strong difference. The ultra-short chant was just one of the characteristics of this magic. The true uniqueness of this magic, visible only through use, was something impossible to discern with the naked eye. Riesel Brynhart. VALRRR muttered. I wonder if letting him learn Ice's magic is a good or bad thing. Hearing her mutter, both Finn and Gareth remained silent. It wasn't until after a while that Finn broke the silence. Regardless, we have a highly potential genius in our familia, which is a good thing. Finn smiled slightly. Train him well, and he might become another familia's backbone in the future. Yeah. Gareth chuckled, stroking his long beard. I get it now. Loki gathered us all, and introduced that kid to us, not just for us to simply teach him magic, no. She wants us to focus on cultivating him, right? VALRRR looked at Finn. What's your plan, Finn? For now, I don't plan to do anything special. Finn bit his thumbnail, thinking for a moment. He joined the Familia just 2 days ago, and he's had the blessing for only 2 days. Now is precisely the time for him to lay the foundation and clarify his own path. If we interfere hastily, it might be counterproductive. Oh. Gareth raised an eyebrow. Are you worried we'll lead him astray? That's right. VALRRR agreed with Finn's view. We don't know enough about him, and his combat style hasn't fully developed. If we interfere randomly, he might be influenced by us. Everyone should have their own path, their own development, the one that suits them best. Riesel was still too young in their eyes, and his time for growth was too short. Before he clarified his own development and path, if he was influenced too much by others, he might end up on a path that was completely unsuitable for him. That was not good and must be avoided. Therefore, Finn didn't plan to intervene too early in Riesel's growth stage. Later, I'll go have a chat with Loki and see if she can spill some beans. Finn said with a smile. Judging by her attitude yesterday, there's probably something special about Riesel's body that we don't know about yet. We need to understand it before making any plans. What else is that kid hiding? Gareth muttered with anticipation. What could it be? Damn, it's really intriguing. It could be skills or other magic. VALRRR said while looking thoughtful. Either way, Loki's attitude definitely signals something. In just a few words, the 3 top executives of Loki Familia settled on a plan for dealing with Riesel. This also indicated that from this moment on, he officially entered the attention of Familia higher-ups, garnering importance. However, the 3 top executives, as well as those secretly observing, were unaware that they were still underestimating him. What happened next would shatter their perception of him, making them reconsider and truly understand his uniqueness. Ice continued to gaze silently at Riesel, who was surrounded by swirling wind, confirming his current state. Really learned. Ice found it challenging to describe her feelings at this moment. Seeing someone else, like her, using Ariel, didn't bring joy. Instead, it stirred up some bittersweet emotions. After all, this magic held significant meaning for her. Suppressing the emotions about to surge within, Ice's eyes flickered for a moment as she glanced at the sword gripped in Riesel's hand. She hesitated for a moment, then looked directly at his face. Want to give it a try? Ice asked calmly. Observing himself and curious about the changes in his body, Riesel understood her intention upon hearing her question. Draw your sword. Ice said calmly. Let me see what your wind looks like. After saying that, she unsheathed her sword, revealing a bright silver sword. However, she didn't grasp the sword hilt. Instead, she held and raised the scabbard and casually tossed the sword aside. Seeing this, Riesel's eyes flickered. The girl in front of him was the strongest swordswoman in VALRRR, a true first-class adventurer. She was powerful. At least, for his present self, she was an object almost impossible to reach. Leaving aside everything else, just the difference in their levels was like heaven and earth, something incomparable. In this world, just one level gap alone represents a huge difference. Moreover, with each level up, the increase in power could be described as a whole evolution. Therefore, in this world, let alone facing a level 5 first-class adventurer, even a level 2 third-class adventurer, Riesel had almost no chance of winning at the moment. But so what? Facing a powerful opponent and being able to throw a challenge at any time was quite exciting, wasn't it? Ba dump. Ba dump. Ba dump. His heartbeat accelerated, and a familiar excitement surged in his heart. Please teach me. As he unsheathed his sword, Riesel wasted no time in assuming a stance, pointing the sharp tip towards Ice's throat. In his eyes, a hint of coldness emerged, completely contradictory to his inner feelings. Ice, who had been acting nonchalantly, seemed to sense something. Her heart tightened while her body subtly tensed up. It felt as if she was being stared at by a ferocious beast, a sensation that gripped her heart. Though not intense or dangerous, it still made her subconsciously tighten her guard. Crack. In that instant, Riesel forcefully stepped on the ground with the wind swirling around his body. With the aid of Ariel, his figure turned into a bullet, charging towards Ice, whose pupils had contracted, marking the beginning of the battle. Support and read advanced chapters at Patreon.com VALRRR. VALRRR creators' thoughts. 7 comments 0 vote. Evolving. Clang. The sharp edge of a sword clashed with a silver scabbard in midair, creating a resonant sound of metal collision. In the narrow courtyard, 2 figures wrapped in wind collided with each other, causing the surrounding airflow to become chaotic under the friction of the wind. Riesel charged recklessly at Ice, his slender sword rising and generating numerous arcs of light, slashing toward the girl. Clang. Cling. Clang. Cling. Successive collision sounds echoed throughout the courtyard. Facing Riesel's relentless charge and merciless slashes, Ice effortlessly danced with her scabbard, deflecting all incoming flashes of silver. Wind collided with wind. Sword clashed against sword. The exchange between the swordsman and swordswoman appeared equal, yet one continuously attacked while the other never took a step back, an ongoing spectacle. Keen observers could discern who held the advantage in this battle. Regardless, Riesel felt as if he were facing not a person but an immovable mountain. No matter how he sprinted or swung his sword, he couldn't shake his opponent. However, confronted with this formidable opponent, he felt no fear. Instead, his blood boiled, while his eyes sparkled. Yes. He enjoyed it. He enjoyed fighting a strong opponent. He enjoyed the urgency, where any mistake could lead to death at any moment, a battle on the brink. Driven by this mentality, he unleashed all his strength. Clang. Cling. Clang. Cling. Clang. The collision sounds seemed even more intense and never-ending. Riesel maneuvered around Ice, launching a variety of attacks towards her slender figure. Blade lights and sword afterimages appeared from all directions, slashing towards her entire body. There was a forceful cleave aimed at her back. A vertical cut targeted her ankles. A sudden thrust aimed at her shoulders. A direct cut towards her abdomen. Riesel showed no signs of holding back or avoiding vital points. Each slash he swung seemed as if he intended to kill Ice for real, with every strike carrying tremendous power and lethality. Unable to make a dent in the powerful swordswoman without pulling out all the stops, he understood the gap between them and believed that she wouldn't succumb to this degree of attack. So he attacked with full dedication. Ice, in response, didn't disappoint him, standing there motionless, effortlessly deflecting every one of his slashes with her scabbard. The girl didn't just parry with her scabbard. She used various straightforward techniques to neutralize his attacks. Facing a forceful cleave towards her back, she swayed her scabbard from the side, skillfully deflecting the powerful blow with minimal effort. Against a vertical slash aimed at her ankles, instead of dodging, the girl lifted her foot and kicked his sword grip, robbing it of strength. A thrust targeting her shoulder was blocked by the scabbard, emphasizing finesse over force. Though the attack was threatening, it was easily parried. Even the attempt to cut her abdomen had no effect. The scabbard rebounded the strike, sending it back, causing him to lose control and step back. Gradually, Ice shifted from defense to offense, using the seemingly harmless scabbard to leave marks on Riesel's body. Her scabbard swung at an incredible speed, while the attacks were sharp. Even without aid from the wind, each strike created a howling gust, hitting him hard. Unable to track the scabbard's trajectory, Riesel abandoned defense, focusing all attention on relentless attacks, turning his slashes into arcs that became faster, fiercer, and deadlier. Watching Riesel, who seemed like a cold and ruthless sword demon, relentlessly attacking Ice, those in the manor witnessing the scene through the windows couldn't stay calm. Are you kidding me? Tiona murmured unconsciously. Wasn't he a rookie who recently received a blessing? Tion wore a disbelief expression. Hey. Loki, you fool. Even Bet, who returned to the window without anyone noticing, stared at the intense battle below. Angered by what he witnessed, he shouted in Loki's direction. Are you sure that Brad was just an ordinary guy who got blessed a few days ago? There should be limits to joking. Not only Bet but Finn, Riveria, and Gareth were left speechless, one after another looking towards Loki. A rookie. Gareth said doubtfully. With this skill and ability, he's already an expert even in level 1. Indeed, Riesel's displayed strength surprised everyone, defying the expectations of the Familia's first-class adventurers who initially only wanted to gauge the rookie's potential. Ah, shit. Loki scratched her head tiredly. Just as I thought, it's gonna be like this. Evidently, the reactions of her children were within her expectations. That kid's damn growth speed. It's strange not to surprise other kids who are growing at an ordinary pace. Loki recalled the events from last night. Last night, after Ice agreed to Riesel's request and promised to teach him her magic, he didn't immediately leave. Instead, he sought Loki's help for the third status update. Riesel Brynhart. Level 1. STR. F385 right pointing arrow D555. End. F380 right pointing arrow D548. Dex. E431 right pointing arrow C623. AGI. E449 right pointing arrow C637. Mag. I0. The total proficiency points in all basic abilities had risen to over 700. In the third status update, Riesel's growth speed remained astonishingly rapid and ridiculous. Especially in Dex and AGI, both had entered the C rank. This was something even adventurers who had worked hard for several years in level 1 could not achieve. As mentioned before, those who could develop basic abilities to A rank were extremely rare, and those who reached S rank were even rarer. Upgrading to B rank was already considered a genius, and there weren't many in Orario. Yet, Riesel achieved C ranks in 2 basic abilities in just 3 days. Due to this fact, Loki spent the night yesterday doubting her own existence, not to mention others. And if others were in such a state, let alone Ice, who faced Riesel head-on. Ice's golden eyes stared at the continuously attacking Riesel, her pupils slightly contracting. In his perception, she was an immovable giant mountain, but in her perception, he seemed like a constantly evolving pupa, seemingly small but gradually growing wings, turning into a moth flying towards the flame. In terms of basic abilities alone, the current Riesel had surpassed more than 90% of level 1 adventurers, becoming one of the top experts in level 1. With the enchant-type magic, Aerial, bringing about an increase in basic abilities, he had comprehensive improvements in attack, defense, speed, and more. As long as he didn't encounter opponents at level 2, he could handle them with ease. Of course, that kind of strength was almost negligible in Ice's eyes. As the universally recognized strongest swordswoman with the strength of a first-class adventurer, Riesel was not impressive in front of Ice, who had been a level 5 adventurer for 3 years. However, through Loki's words, Ice also knew that Riesel was just an ordinary human who received a blessing just 3 days ago and had never received a blessing before. To possess a strength equivalent to an experienced expert in level 1 within 3 days. This fact stimulated the deepest part of Ice's heart, surprising even herself. Even more surprising for her was that, with their ongoing battle, Riesel was still evolving. Specifically, he seemed to have found the key to controlling Aerial, starting to enhance the wind on his sword or directly detonating it under his feet to increase his attack speed and movement speed. He had truly become a gust of wind, swiftly approaching. Moreover, as time passed, his sword became sharper and less chaotic, becoming somewhat familiar to Ice. Is he learning my swordsmanship? Ice's heart shook uncontrollably. She was correct. Riesel was indeed learning her swordsmanship. Is this how I should swing a sword? In the continuous attacks, his eyes reveal strands of enlightenment, changing his sword movements step by step. Becoming simpler. Becoming faster. With exceptional memory, Riesel observed Ice's movements carefully, noting every technique she used, and relying on his inhuman growth speed to reproduce and master them. This was an unexpected harvest. Riesel, who originally only wanted to learn magic from Ice, only realized this at this moment. I should learn not only magic. I should grow not only in status. My combat skill, combat technique, also need learning and growth. In his previous life, Riesel had only learned taijutsu for self-defense. So, where did he learn combat techniques used for actual fights, especially sword technique? No, he hadn't learned at all. But now, he had the opportunity to learn. The changes and transformations that he had undergone in Ice's eyes were no different. Too fast. Ice exclaimed in her mind. He's changing way too fast. Her realization caused flaws in her seemingly flawless movements. Right there. Riesel's eyes suddenly lit up, capturing these subtle imperfections. Clang. With her seemingly effortless slash, Ice retreated. An opportunity. Riesel instinctively realized that this was the only opportunity in this battle that could pose a threat to her. Without hesitation, he aimed straight at Ice's exposed chest and thrust his sword forward. Support and read advanced chapters at patreon.com VALRRR. VALRRR creators' thoughts. 12 comments, 0 vote. Doubt. Everything came to a standstill. Time was frozen. Ice gazed at the sword tip thrusting towards her chest. Her pupils, which had already contracted, narrowed even further. Ice. Someone suddenly screamed Ice's name in panic. Upon hearing this voice, Ice finally snapped back to reality. Her pupils, which were about to shrink to the size of a pin, suddenly burst with vivid colors. Boom. A burst of wind wrapped around her body, transforming into a powerful shockwave that sent everything around her flying. Riesel felt an overwhelming force coming from the front and was instantly blasted away, crashing into the courtyard wall. Arg. Riesel couldn't help but cough out all the air from his lungs as his back stung with pain. The wind surrounding his body dispersed upon colliding with Ice's wind, so he endured the wave of the wall impact with his body directly, causing intense pain throughout. Are you okay? Ice exclaimed and hesitated for a moment, an unusual hint of concern appeared on her face. Not just her, but even the onlookers were startled by the sudden turn of events. Something's wrong. Tiona shouted in a panic. Wrong my ass. It's all your fault. Why did you scream? Tione slapped Tiona hard, scolding her sister. The one who had screamed Ice's name earlier was Tiona. If it weren't for her scream, Ice wouldn't have instinctively used her full strength. I only saw Ice almost getting stabbed. I couldn't help but scream, okay. Tiona rubbed her throbbing forehead, tearfully defending herself. You dumbass Amazoness. Bet immediately cursed. Ice used magic and had wind protection. How could that guy's sword possibly hit her? Indeed, even if Ice hadn't unleashed the full force of her wind to repel Riesel, his attack would likely not have caused any significant damage. The protection of Ariel would shield the user's body. Even if Riesel's sword had hit, it probably would have been blocked by the wind. So, Tiona's scream was completely unnecessary. I'm sorry. Tiona seemed to realize this too, muttering awkwardly with a hint of guilt. Alright, stop staring. Finn interrupted the argument. Let's check on the rookie's condition first. With that, Finn jumped directly out of the window, completely disregarding the fact that they were dozens of meters high. These brats, why are they so impulsive? Gareth scolded while following suit and jumping down. Meanwhile, Riveria had already descended ahead of them. Seeing this, Bet, Tiona, and Tione followed suit, one after another, jumping from the window into the courtyard. Only Loki remained, with one leg on the windowsill, appearing as though she was about to jump. However, upon realizing the ground was far below, her mouth twitched. Feigning nonchalance, she quietly retracted her leg. Meh, forget it, as long as Finn and Riveria are there. Having sealed her arcanum, Loki wisely avoided the fate of landing like a box right then and there. One after another, Loki Familia's executives entered the courtyard, gathering around Riesel. Are you okay? Riveria was the first to approach, helping Riesel up while placing a hand on his body, seemingly checking something. I'm sorry. Ice also came forward and apologized while looking at Riesel, who was standing unsteadily. She lowered her head, full of disappointment, resembling a child who had done something wrong. Even Tiona apologized by gazing at him with eyes full of regret. Cough. Cough. Riesel coughed a few times, took a deep breath, felt the pain in his chest diminish, and then looked at the people present. I'm fine, no need to worry. Riesel shook his head. His words made everyone observe his expression for a moment. After confirming that he was indeed okay, they all sighed in relief. That's good. Finn seemed like he wanted to pat Riesel's shoulder but found that he couldn't reach the shoulder. He gave up and laughed. Luckily, the wind helped you offset some of the impact. Otherwise, you might have to stay in bed for a few days. You kids really went overboard. Gareth, with a disapproving look, snorted coldly. A little sparring is fine, but actually going all out. Do you want to kill or injure your familia companions? Indeed. Riveria said with wrinkled brows. Ice, your reaction was too intense. You should reflect on it. Ice's head lowered even further, her expression more dejected. It's not her fault. Riesel, now fully recovered, defended her. I wanted to spar with Miss Ice myself, and her counterattack was only natural. Even so, you guys went too far. Tione sighed. Seeing the way you looked like you wanted to kill Ice just now, I almost thought you were seriously fighting to death. Really, it reminded me of some unpleasant memories back home. Yeah. Tiona nodded repeatedly, agreeing. She had been genuinely scared just now, recalling some unwelcome memories. Hence, if they wanted to blame someone, it was mostly Riesel's fault. Immersed too deeply in the battle, and too trusting in Ice's strength, what should have been a more casual spar gradually turned into a serious fight. It could be said that he brought it upon himself. It's my fault. Riesel admitted with self-awareness, knowing he had been too aggressive. Seeing Ice's dejected expression, he quickly reassured her. Please don't blame yourself anymore. After all, it's my fault. You were just defending yourself, and you didn't do anything wrong. Hearing his words, Ice nodded, but there was still a hint of dejection on her face, making him feel a bit guilty. However, before he could fully console her, Bet's voice interjected. For such a trivial matter, what's there to fuss about? Bet stared at Riesel intensely, resembling a lone wolf intimidating something. I'm asking you, brat, did you really just receive the blessing 3 days ago? With his question, everyone turned their attention to Riesel. The still dejected Ice, who seemed particularly focused on this topic, also raised her head and looked over. Riesel was momentarily surprised by the question but quickly understood what was happening, so he nodded. Yes, I received the blessing 3 days ago. His statement was met with Bet's blunt rebuttal. Who do you think you're fooling, huh? Bet spoke with his usual foul mouth. You trying to tell me you've grown this much in just 3 days? I ain't buying your bullshit. Bet's skepticism was obvious. He didn't believe Riesel could progress so quickly, and that was perfectly reasonable. Judging by your recent performance, even without considering Ice's magic you used, logically speaking, you should have at least 1 or 2 basic abilities at D rank, maybe even C rank. Finn calculated precisely, pondering Riesel's status. At least D rank basic abilities, possibly not just 1. Gareth speculated aloud. Man, when we reached this stage, it took us nearly a year, right? The fastest among us should be Ice. Riveria glanced at the doll-like girl. But even Ice took about half a year back then. Tiona exclaimed with surprise. Doesn't that mean he surpassed Ice's efforts in just 3 days? With her statement, everyone fell silent. Especially Ice, who stared intently at Riesel, seemingly particularly concerned about this topic. Riesel could only bask in the various intrigued looks from everyone, inwardly smiling wryly. He certainly knew why everyone reacted so strongly. After all, even Ice took so long to reach this stage initially, let alone others. Achieving such results in just 3 days was undoubtedly hard for people to accept. Ice was the world record holder for the fastest advancement to level 2. At the tender age of 8, it took her just a year to level up to high-class adventurer successfully. Her innate skill was nothing short of being the best in the world. However, Riesel displayed a skill that surpassed her by far and even surpassed it by so much that people found it hard to believe. But he himself didn't think much of it. After all, the protagonist only took about a month to level up successfully, and at level 1, every time his status was updated, total proficiency would increase by hundreds of points. What I did is nothing compared to him, right? Precisely because of this, when Loki doubted his own growth as godly, Riesel himself felt that there was nothing great about it. The things the protagonist could effortlessly achieve with cheat after cheat, Riesel only did the same. What's there to be surprised about? This world was also not the only one. In another anime world, faster growth and even becoming a monster who rises to the top overnight would not be uncommon. Therefore, Riesel really didn't think it was a big deal, so he maintained his calm and composed attitude. You can go ask Loki. 3 days ago, when I received her blessing, my back was probably as plain as can be. She knows best. Upon hearing Riesel's reasoning, everyone exchanged glances and simultaneously turned, heading toward Loki's room. You come too. I want to see if this is real. The Amazonas twins each grabbed one of Riesel's arms and dragged him with them. Ice followed closely behind, with a determined stride. This made Riesel realize that his status was inevitably exposed. Support and read advanced chapters at Patreon.com VALRRR. VALRRR creators' thoughts. 12 comments 0 vote. Astonishment and envy. Riesel Brynhart. Level 1. STR. D555. End. D548. Dex. C623. AGI. C637. Mag. I0. Magic. Almighty. Memorize magic. Activate specific magic based on memory. The strength of the magic is determined by the basic ability of MAG. Only effective for valid magic. Skill. Fool's Obsession. Extraordinary increase in growth speed. Extraordinary increase in growth limit. The deeper the obsession, the stronger the effect. The effect is greatly enhanced in dangerous situations. Endless. Obtains the highest rank development ability, healing power. Obtains the highest rank development ability, spirit healing. Obtains the highest rank development ability, abnormal resistance. Improve obtained development abilities. Self-redemption. Immune to body interference. Immune to mental interference. The status can be updated independently by consuming the corresponding god's blood. Can accept and enhance the effects of friendly buffs on oneself. Riesel and every executive of Loki Familia were in Loki's divine room at this moment. Reading Riesel's status that had just been translated by Loki, whether it was the three top executives leading the Loki Familia or the executives like Ice and the others, all fell into a death-like silence. Riesel, brought here by Loki, exposed his status as he intended with her cooperation. The backbones of the Familia stared at the parchment held by Finn, looking at the ridiculous status on it, their breath gradually becoming erratic. Especially Ice, her gaze was almost fixed on the skill called Fool's Obsession, or rather, on the effect of extraordinary increase in growth speed. At some point, her hands had quietly clenched. Everyone could only exchange stupefied glances, their gazes frequently moving back and forth on Riesel and the parchment in Finn's hands, feeling their heads spinning. No choice. The amount of information brought by Riesel's status was too much for them, leaving them in confusion. Among everyone present, only Riesel remained calm from start to finish. As for Loki, her face wore a mischievous grin, enjoying the spectacle as she watched everyone's reactions. As you can see, this kid has incredible potential. Right from the get-go, he not only awakened one magic and 3 skills but, whether it's magic or skills, they're all super unique and absurd. Loki spread her hands wide as she spoke. That's why this kid's growth speed is so fast. He only got a blessing from me 3 days ago, and before that, he had none, and I can vouch for that. As the goddess's words reached everyone's ears, they not only failed to shatter the silence but left them even more speechless. However, Riesel's standing in the hearts of everyone present was gradually becoming completely different. At first, I thought he was just a rookie with great potential, but did we seriously underestimate him? Finn chuckled. He knew very well that if Riesel truly possessed these exaggerated magic and skills recorded on the parchment in his hands, Riesel's existence would mean something significant. Not just Finn, even Riveria and Gareth, the oldest members in the Familia, were aware of this. Could this kid be the one who will shatter the legend of only one level 7 in all of VALRRR? Gareth's hushed words sent shockwaves through everyone's hearts. Level 7. This was something that had never happened in Loki Familia, a level that only one figure in all of VALRRR had reached even after searching far and wide. That person was considered VALRRR's ultimate weapon, a legendary character on par with ancient heroes, enjoying fame worldwide. Finn, Riveria, and Gareth had been striving for that realm for who knows how many years, but they had yet to succeed. Even the genius members of Loki Familia, whether it was Bet, the twin sisters Tiona and Tion who became level 5 at a young age, or Ice, the record holder for the fastest ascent to level 2, all of them were true geniuses with innate potential among the world's top characters. However, in the 3 top executives' eyes, the chances of these geniuses reaching level 7 were equally slim, with Ice being the only one with a somewhat plausible chance. But now, in Riesel, everyone saw the possibility of him breaking through that level. At least, the 3 top executives felt this way. In such a situation, he could no longer be described simply as a rookie with potential. He was clearly a supernova possessing the hero characteristic. Once again, everyone looked at him, their eyes filled with various complex emotions. TCH. Bet couldn't help but click his tongue, then turned around, walking away with an irritated pace. Where are you going? Riveria frowned and asked as she saw Bet's back. Dungeon. Bet replied coldly and strode away without looking back. Make sure not to spill the beans, Bet. Loki reminded with a mischievous grin on her face that never faded while her squinted eyes slightly opened. I've classified Riesel's status as Familia's top secret. Initially, I was only going to spill the beans to Finn. Fortunately, Riesel's cool with you guys knowing, so I'm lifting the ban on spilling the beans to you. Just be careful not to blurt it out carelessly, okay? Upon hearing her warning, Bet came to a halt. He knew well how crucial one's status information could be. If exposed to others, it could turn into a deadly situation if targeted, especially for someone like Riesel, with such outrageous magic and skills. If his information leaked, there was a 90% chance of attracting the attention of Loki Familia's enemies or falling prey to those with ulterior motives. Considering such possibilities, normally, details of one's status would be shared sparingly, even among companions within the same Familia, except for close relatives. Bet himself followed this principle. Even within the Familia, very few knew all of his abilities. In Riesel's case, he should have been extra cautious about safeguarding his status information. Even among the Familia executives present, only Finn, as the Familia's captain responsible for coordinating all members, would need to know some details. For the rest, it wouldn't be surprising if they remained ignorant, regardless of how well the information was kept confidential. However, Riesel chose to disclose it to them. Despite Bet being a rather unpleasant senior, Riesel still chose to let him know his status. Realizing this, Bet was once again realized and astonished. Who would do such a stupid thing? Leaving a grumpy remark, Bet left the room more violently and impatiently. Tiona and Tion exchanged glances and then turned to leave as well. Where are you two going? Riveria inquired helplessly. Dungeon. The twin sisters' responses were almost synchronized. Seeing even the Amazonas twins were leaving, Riveria sighed and pressed her forehead with her hand. Those kids just came back from an expedition yesterday. Today, there's a lot of work to be done with the loot, and yet they abandoned it all to go to the dungeon. What's going on? Goo ha ha ha. They must have been stimulated, those little rascals. Riveria's sigh of resignation was met with Gareth's involuntary laughter, and he hit the nail on the head. Bet, Tiona, and Tion were indeed stimulated. Stimulated by Riesel's inhuman potential. Stimulated by Riesel's rapid growth speed. Did they realize there's a monster chasing them from behind, worried their junior might surpass them? Loki chuckled, looking like she enjoyed the chaos she caused. You knew it would turn out like this, yet still intentionally make this happen, no? Finn looked at Loki helplessly. Well, isn't that great? Loki chuckled skeptically. Maybe this can bring new energy and motivation to those kids. Just thinking about it gets me excited. You gods always enjoy watching these unpredictable developments unfold. Gareth discontentedly remarked. Now, all the work of handling loot falls on us old folks. Can't those little rascals take care of the elderly? Well, since it's come to this, let them do as they please, Riveria said tiredly, shook her head, and then looked towards Riesel. It's tough for you to reveal detailed information about your status like this. Don't worry, despite Bet, Tiona, and Tion seeming hasty and impatient, they know their limits. They won't casually expose your secrets. Her voice softened as she spoke to him. I know. Riesel calmly smiled at Riveria. Otherwise, I wouldn't have chosen to reveal it. Based on his understanding of the original work and familiarity with the important characters of Loki Familia, he believed that everyone present could be trusted. Even with Bet's shitty attitude, Riesel knew that deep down, he wasn't a bad guy. It was just a result of his difficult experiences that made him speak harshly. So, Riesel chose not to hide the details of his status. This decision was made with future development in mind. After all, he would inevitably need to seek advice from these Familia seniors in the future, asking them to guide him. Whether it was magic or combat skills, he had a lot to learn, and showcasing his potential like this, gaining the attention of Familia executives, was necessary. Loki seemed to see through Riesel, and doubts crept into her mind. This kid didn't have this attitude when he received a blessing 3 days ago. At that time, she thought he wouldn't easily integrate and mingle into the Familia. Who would have thought that once he recognized all of Familia's executives, he would start demonstrating his value? Quite clever. You can consult us anytime. It's okay. We'd be happy to guide a rookie with unlimited potential like you. Finn also sensed Riesel's intentions. Riveria and Gareth nodded in agreement. Thank you. Riesel bowed his head to everyone in gratitude. Unbeknownst to him, Ice, who had remained silent behind him, was watching him intensely. In her eyes, there was nothing but envy. Support and read advanced chapters at Patreon.com VALRRR. VALRRR creators' thoughts. 16 comments 0 vote. Pissed. Download the app for additional rewards. More events, more perks. Winning you more free perks. Download now. VALRRR. Download app now. Pressure. The events that took place in Loki's divine room were known only to the executives of Loki Familia. But from that day on, members of Loki Familia were surprised to find out that, for some reason, the executives like Bet, Tiona, Tion, and even Ice, who had recently become even more silent than before, were constantly running outside every day. The frequency of their appearances in Twilight Manor dropped drastically, with them ignoring the handling of loot and even skipping celebration banquets upon returning from the expedition. This puzzled many members of Loki Familia, leading to widespread speculation. Yo, what's the deal with them? Why are they running outside all the time? Is there some urgent business they're dealing with? I heard someone spotted them venturing into the dungeon before sunrise and not coming back until way past bedtime. Is this some spontaneous burst of determination? But seriously, why? The members were filled with questions, and some even approached the three top executives for answers, only to receive a more confusing response. They're just feeling pressure. Don't bother them. Let them go. This was the consistent response from the three, leaving the Familia members who got wind of the information somewhat at a loss. Pressure. Do the executives feel it too? Who could be putting pressure on them? This was the most perplexing aspect. Unfortunately, the three top executives had no intention of explaining, just smiling and brushing off the matters, leaving the Familia members curious but unable to press further. Riesel also learned about this, and although somewhat surprised, he didn't find it surprising. As Loki had mentioned, anyone with a competitive spirit and ambition would feel pressure when chased by someone with a cheat behind them. Especially these executives, who were originally talented. They were not like the three top executives, who were older and more mature. It's natural for them to have some competitiveness and refusal to lose. In terms of age, the executives were quite young after all. For example, the Amazonas twins, Tiona and Tion, despite being level 5 first-class adventurers, were only 17 years old, the same age as Riesel in this life. Ice, the strongest swordswoman in Orario, the record holder for the fastest ascent to level 2, was only 16 years old this year, 1 year younger than Riesel. Bet was a bit older at 22 this year, but compared to the three top executives, he was still a youngster. Finn, the seemingly young Palom, was already 42 years old, and Gareth was 56. Riveria, as a high elf with a long lifespan, was said to be only second to Loki in age within the Familia. No one dared to ask, fearing that a careless question might turn them into ashes. Compared to those three, Ice and the other executives were indeed young, explaining Gareth's complaints about them being restless and not growing up. In this situation, although Riesel was a rookie, he was in the same age group as the four executives. Given that, being seen as rivals was only natural. Even though Riesel was well aware that, if he counted the age from his previous life, he was definitely the elder among the executives, with an age only slightly younger than the three top executives in the Familia. However, in the eyes of outsiders, he undeniably appeared as a young junior. This greatly stimulated the competitive spirit among the group of talented boys and girls. Loki clearly knew this would happen, so she deliberately used me to stimulate them, right? Riesel understood this point but had no objections. It was normal for the god of Familia to want their children to work harder and progress further. If his joining could stimulate the talents in Familia to work harder, it would undoubtedly be a good thing. Of course, considering Loki's personality, that goddess probably also wanted to enjoy the spectacle for her own entertainment. For this reason, Riveria protested to Loki for a while, making the goddess laugh off the matter for quite some time before the tension eased. Riesel did hear Loki mutter something once. The only thing to worry about is Ice. That girl, if she gets too stimulated and does something reckless, I'll probably get my head knocked by Riveria's staff. Riesel took her muttering to heart. Because, he also noticed that since learning the details of his status, Ice's emotions seemed to become somewhat unstable. Originally not very good at expressing her emotions, the girl who seemed a bit aloof was often referred to as the doll princess, appearing silent and difficult to understand. However, after that day, Ice not only became even more silent but also returned home late and always dirty. When she saw Riesel, who came back in a sorry state every day due to exploring the floors beyond his safe ability, she was even more stubborn. Riesel found this intriguing. After all, he knew what kind of person Ice Wallenstein was and understood the wishes she held in her heart. I really want to become strong quickly. When he asked her to teach him her magic before, he had pinpointed that important line. His line could also be said to be a vivid portrayal of her innermost feelings. With the appearance of that line, Ice was moved and willing to teach him her magic. Therefore, he was well aware that the girl named Ice Wallenstein, like himself, was longing to get stronger, an unquenchable desire. If his growth stimulated her, leading her to act recklessly, he would naturally feel worried about her. So, he decided to talk to Loki about this matter. However, the goddess seemed completely unconcerned. Don't worry. We all know our limits. In Loki's divine room at night, Loki updated Riesel's status as usual and chatted. How much Ice does do crazy stuff, Finn and the others keep a close eye on her. It's not at the point where you need to worry. Her face showed no signs of worry. Instead, she appeared relaxed. One hand slid on his back, and the other held a bottle of wine, drinking sip by sip until her face turned red. Are you sure you guys can handle it? Ignoring the drunken goddess, Riesel furrowed his brows as he inquired. Relax, relax, Loki laughed drunkenly. When it's really unbearable, the mama can't help but make a move to stop her. Does this mama refer to Riveria? Riesel raised a brow. Indeed, as the senior in Familia, VALRRR showed a warmth that typical royal family members did not have, and her care for the juniors could be considered the greatest among the Familia's higher-ups. Like a mother, she watched over many people in Familia, especially Ice. She practically raised Ice from childhood, and there was almost no difference between her and her own biological daughter. Even toward Riesel, who had just joined Familia, VALRRR showed a caring and loving side. Now, she was probably the one secretly paying the most attention to Ice's situation. If she judged that Ice couldn't continue like this, it was indeed possible for her to intervene. Yash. While Riesel was lost in thought, Loki's relaxed voice rang out. Here, this is your latest status. She handed over the parchment to him, who took it and began reading. Riesel Brynhart. Level 1. STR. D555 right pointing arrow C678. End. D548 right pointing arrow C666. Dex. C623 right pointing arrow B772. AGI. C637 right pointing arrow B793. Mag. I0 right pointing arrow F314. TCH, another exaggerated growth spurt. Loki, gulping her drink, whether trying to drown herself in alcohol to numb the creeping sensation of Riesel's rapid growth or simply getting used to it, wore a grin. With a total proficiency increase of over 850, especially the growth in Mag, it's enough to scare any god. You've been using Ice's magic a lot lately, huh? Loki clicked her tongue in amazement. She had a point. In recent times, Riesel indeed focused heavily on practicing magic for the growth of Mag, making frequent use of Aerial. And the results proved it to be a wise decision from the start. The ultra-short chant magic was very convenient and easy, with an activation speed of just 1 second. Unlike other magic that would lose its effect after a single blast, enchant-type magic's effects would last for a while, not immediately wearing off. During this time, Riesel was effectively using magic. Such frequent magic usage was naturally reflected in the growth of MAG. Coupled with the nature of enchant-type magic, which required him to charge into the front lines and engage in close combat even after using magic, it simultaneously worked as training for other basic abilities. He didn't lag behind in any aspect of improvement. However, the growth speed in other basic abilities has decreased. Riesel said with a certain uneasiness. Be content, kiddo. Loki rolled her eyes, speaking grumpily. Take a look at the stage your status has reached. If you don't slow down, I might start suspecting you're not mortal but some god's illegitimate child. As one approaches the S rank, the growth of basic abilities naturally slows down. With Riesel having 2 abilities reaching B rank, the growth of basic abilities slowing down was a fair and reasonable outcome. By the way, considering where you're at now, you're probably ready for a level up, yeah. Loki glanced at Riesel, tossing out a question while holding her bottle of wine. What's your take? At her question, Riesel fell into deep thought. Support and read advanced chapters at Patreon.com VALRRR. VALRRR creators' thoughts. 12 comments 0 vote. Anticipation. If you asked an adventurer what change they anticipated the most in their status, their answer was likely to be only one, level. It wasn't about obtaining magic or skills with peculiar effects, nor was it about a significant boost in basic abilities. It was about the evolution of body and mind, the increase in level. Especially for a level 1 beginner adventurer, leveling up was undoubtedly the most eagerly awaited thing. Because, from this step onwards, they truly embarked on an extraordinary path. VALRRR existed as a catalyst for growth, an accelerator for getting stronger. In other words, it didn't enable those who couldn't get stronger to break their limits and get stronger. Instead, it accelerated the process for those who could continue getting stronger. It all boiled down to whether a person had the growth potential. If there was growth potential, VALRRR could expedite the process by accumulating excellia to stimulate growth, becoming a nourishment for growth. Unfortunately, without growth potential, even with VALRRR, one could not grow further. This was why people who could develop basic abilities to S rank were rare, and even those at A rank and B rank were scarce. Their potential was depleted, preventing any further growth. Accumulating excellia wouldn't increase proficiency even a bit. In light of this, despite the disparities in strength at level 1, people in this level still belong to the realm of the ordinary. They could accumulate excellia to push their bodies to the limit of mortal but couldn't truly transcend and possess monstrous strength. Especially for mortals without any racial advantage, even if they pushed their bodies to the limit through training, at best, they could only shatter a rock. Could they really bring down a whole mountain? It was unattainable. The mortal body had its limits, no matter how one grew, one wouldn't become godly. But once they experienced leveling up, everything changed. The so-called body and mind evolution was just as it sounds, a genuine transcendence, officially entering the realm of superpower. Whether human or demi-human, even if they exhausted their potential at level 1, reaching the limit of their mortal body, once they successfully leveled up, a transformation worthy of being called body and mind evolution occurred. This transformation was not only evident in getting stronger but also in the vessel becoming larger and broader. After leveling up, the body transcended to another level, bringing forth new potential and possibilities. It gave a chance for those who reached a bottleneck, unable to progress, to have the opportunity to grow and get stronger once again. This was leveling up. As Loki had said, leveling up was approaching the level of the gods. The higher the level, the more frequent the transcendence, the more thorough the evolution of body and mind, and the closer one got to the gods. So, the phenomenon of leveling up could be seen as a step-by-step becoming a god. Who wouldn't yearn to level up? However, leveling up was not something that could be casually done. In general, to level up, you need to meet two conditions. Loki swayed the bottle of wine in her hand, intentionally or unintentionally remarking. One is to bump up one of your basic skills to the 6th rank, that is, D rank. Second, obtain high rank Excellia, by pulling off a remarkable exploit, mostly by defeating opponents stronger than yourself. The first condition provided a solid foundation for leveling up. If the basic accumulation was insufficient, it was like building a tall skyscraper on an unstable foundation. Even if you build upward, the only result was likely to be a collapse. Similarly, to achieve body and mind evolution, to bring about individual sublimation, it was impossible without a certain foundation. The second condition was to provide an ample supply of the so-called nutrients for leveling up and evolution. Just as ordinary Excellia could promote the growth of basic abilities and even awaken magic and skills, to level up, one still needed enough Excellia. However, at that point, the required Excellia was not something ordinary Excellia could satisfy. As Loki had said, it had to be high-rank Excellia. This kind of advanced Excellia was what Loki referred to as an exploit. That is, defeating opponents stronger than oneself. That is, taking life-threatening risks. That is, creating challenging endeavors that leave a lasting impact. Once these actions were accomplished, the recipient of the blessing would obtain more advanced Excellia than usual, achieving the so-called exploit. When the accumulation of exploits was sufficient, the evolution of body and mind would be triggered, allowing individuals to advance and enter higher domains. This was leveling up. Defeating opponents stronger than myself, huh? Riesel muttered and a smirk unconsciously appeared on his lips. Seeing him like this, Loki sobered up from the alcohol. Well. It seems this didn't just fail to scare you, but got you excited instead. Loki retorted speechlessly. Usually, when people hear they gotta take down opponents stronger than themselves, they'd be hesitating, maybe even freaking out, you know. But you're truly something else. Instead of hesitating or scared shitless, you're practically sounding the war horn for battle. Wasn't that the case? Fighting against opponents stronger than oneself usually meant having no chance of winning, right? No chance of winning implied a high possibility of death. Upon hearing that leveling up required such conditions, who wouldn't hesitate? Only Riesel, unexpectedly, was smiling. It's not that bad. Riesel quickly hid the uncontrollable twitch at the corner of his mouth. Even if the opponent is stronger, there are examples of the weak overcoming the strong, and there are many of them. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many high-class adventurers in this world. Indeed, even though the requirements for leveling up were strict, there were still quite a few who managed to achieve it in the end. Why? Because being weaker than the opponent allowed for compensation through skill, reversal through tactics, and even a plethora of plots and tricks. To be more direct, wasn't magic also a miraculous trump card? If you happen to encounter an opponent stronger than yourself, then, by risking it all and casting a super long chant wide area annihilation magic, unleashing the power to scorch the sky and boil the sea, could it be that it was impossible to burn down a stronger opponent in one go? All these possibilities hinged on the potential of the weak triumphing over the strong. Of course, there was also a simpler method. I suggest you find someone to form a party. Loki advised. Facing stronger enemies, challenging them in a party setup, using the combined strength to tackle the opponent, that's the shortcut to obtaining high-rank Excellia and achieving exploit. In short, if you couldn't win a duel, you just ganged up on them. Challenging stronger opponents in this way could also yield exploits. However, by doing so, Excellia was distributed among all the members of the same party, which might have led to insufficient accumulation of high-rank Excellia for a one-time level up. But if once wasn't enough, then didn't a few more times enough? This was why the conditions for achieving exploits were so strict, and yet many people still managed to level up successfully. Challenging in a party setup was both safe and reliable. Luckily, this familia's got loads of kids, and there are plenty of high-level kids. They can guide you safely as you level up. Loki glanced at Riesel and grinned. If you need anything, just give me a shout. The meaning of her words was clear. He just needed to directly tell her if he needed help and she would help arrange a party to guide him. This was also one of the advantages of joining a big familia: someone to lead you, someone to take care of you, someone to guide you, and someone to protect you. There was no need to worry about not progressing. Only the concern of whether one's potential was enough. In a weaker familia, finding a companion to form a party was a big problem. From this perspective, Riesel's initial choice to join Loki familia was undoubtedly a wise one. Otherwise, why would so many people have hoped to join a big familia? It was clear that the connections and resources of a big familia were too advantageous. Only. Party, huh? Riesel unconsciously furrowed his brow, leaving Loki at a loss for words. Oh, come on, kiddo. Wouldn't it be awesome if someone had your back? You never know what kind of troubles might come your way if you go solo. Looking at Riesel's hesitated face, Loki ground her teeth, holding back the urge to smash his head with the wine bottle. Meh, fuck it. Expecting you to grow up all nice and steady is probably wishful thinking. Since your status hasn't hit its peak, let's get you used to group combat first. We'll figure out the details when it's time to level up. Looking at Riesel's growth potential, there was no doubt that he hadn't fully unleashed his potential at level 1. Given this trend, upgrading all his basic abilities to the A rank was undoubtedly possible, and even reaching the highest S rank was a visible possibility. But could the power after leveling up from the strongest S rank be the same as leveling up from the minimum D rank? Both were level ups, and the power gained after leveling up was the same. However, it was clear that those with higher status in the initial S rank would be stronger. Hey, I'm actually looking forward to seeing if you can pull off the miracle of hitting S rank on all basic abilities. Loki chuckled. All S rank. Riesel muttered quietly. That was indeed a miracle. At least, as far as he knew, even in the original work, only one person came close to this achievement. That legendary character, dubbed Orario's ultimate weapon, with a staggering level 7, had 4 basic abilities in his status reaching S rank, just one short of achieving S rank on all basic abilities. Apart from that individual, there was no second person in the original work with such terrifying basic abilities. Of course, the protagonist of the original work was an exception. He not only achieved S rank on all basic abilities but even surpassed them, reaching a realm unheard of and unseen by even the gods. Riesel looked at the parchment in his hand, his eyes flickering. Compared to the protagonist, could he touch the possibility that made the gods amazed? I'm kinda looking forward to it. Riesel smiled and said with anticipation inside his mind. Support and read advanced chapters at